2 years now, and we've been working fairly closely with Des Moines, with Rusty, and it seems to be a very good thing, in that we're getting a standardised style throughout the club, and hopefully what is generally used in New South Wales. That's what we're trying for.
And Rusty, can the grammar crew, in your opinion, do it again?
Oh, I think they can, yes. Yeah.
Well, who are their main rivals?
Well, their main rivals will be, there's 4 or 5 crews, I think, that are fairly, will be fairly close together. Naturally, you've got Newington, who were just out of it last year by about half a length. And we can't lose sight of St Ignatius, who did well early in the season and may have gone off a little bit, but that mainly was through, I believe, through sickness and a few problems that they did have in the crew, but hopefully that'll be ironed out now. We've got Scots who've shown up very well recently, and I think that Shaw has to be a contender as well. So there's a lot of good crews there that are going to be very, very close together, I would think.
Yeah, interesting thing, Don, is the good crews appear to have drawn together right beside each other.
Yes, that's very good. Although I think the conditions this year are probably the fairest we've had for many years. Very little run on the river. What the wind will do, we don't know yet, but we've got Newington, Shaw, Grammar, Scots fairly close together, yes.
You had a bit of trouble with your boat at Grammar.
Well, we've got a new boat this year. We've got probably the first fiberglass boat made in Australia. And there were some teething troubles earlier on, but we've covered those now, and it's working very, very well. But basically, it was made by McConaughey. I don't know who made colour 7. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
That's all right.
But certainly, it's a light boat, exactly the same mould as last year's boat, and should do very well.
Rusty, there were reports in the paper this week that the GPS regatta is not as big as event as it used to be in terms of public appeal, but in terms of the importance to rowing, now, how important is it in an Australian rowing?
Well, I think it's very important. I'm pretty new to the GPS scene here, as you probably are aware. I've only been around for a couple of years, but it seems a very important event to me. Insofar as it brings a lot of rowing people together, school-wise this is, and I think it's a great grounding for future oarsmen. And if the clubs really like to capitalise on this and help the GPS schools, I'm sure that there'll be a lot more of the fellows stay in the sport after they finish school. And at the moment, I think there's too many leave the sport, of course, after they're finished with the head of the river, and they go into football and forget all about rowing again. And I think this is a pity, because there's a terrible lot of good oarsmen rowing here at this particular regatta.
Well, I don't know if you're the right person to answer this, Tom, but talking of the importance of the regatta, it did seem years ago that they exaggerated this GPS regatta. It was overboomed and so many people came up. Would you like to see just a schoolboys race with school interest only, or should it have a massive wave of publicity?
Well, I think as it was many years ago, I can remember the tremendous crowds that used to come up here, and the tremendous, publicity in the paper was just going for weeks beforehand. And I think it put a tremendous strain on the boys. Even now, just this one major race makes it very hard for them. They've got everything, all their whole year's training just comes out in one race. Now, if you've got a lot of publicity behind that and a lot of pressure on the boys, it just makes it that much harder. And I think now it's easier for them, and I think it's probably fairer that way. But we'd prefer it. Well, I think it's generally better the way it is now.
So to have it as a schoolboys race for schoolboys. Well, ignoring the fact that you're associated with Grammar, who's to win? Rusty.
I would say Grammar.
And tomorrow, GPS Regatta, rowing action from 20 to 2.
Kings and St Joseph's, time 5:55.2. Margins are canvas by 3.5. The water to our catamaran and Doug Donoghue.
Well, as we come past the 3/4 mile mark now, the leading crew is Sydney Grammar, but let's give you the field. In lane 1 is Newington. In lane 2 is Scots. In lane 3, St Joseph's College. In lane 4, St Ignatius College. In lane 5, the King's School. In lane 6, Sydney Grammar School, the leading crew. In lane 7, Sydney High School, they're a little way back at the stage. And in lane 7 is Shaw. Well, we're in that second quarter mile mark now, and coming in onto this crew from Grammar that are leading at this stage. They're in lane 6, but being challenged by St Joseph's and Shaw. And this race is developing very well as we come up towards the half-mile mark.
Well, the Sydney Grammar crew is the lightest four in the race, and they got away very brightly. And dark singlets there in station number 6, and they've been keeping up the bright work. But I think at the moment the heavier crew and the more favoured crew of Shaw in station number 8 is starting to pull away from Grammar. The challenge, of course, as mentioned by Doug, is coming from St Joseph's on the far side. But the heavier Shaw crew starting to perhaps move away from Sydney Grammar. Their blade work perhaps not all that clean, but nevertheless a good deal of effort going into their boat at this stage.
And as we come past the half-mile mark now, it's the Shaw and Grammar crews very much together. And back in third place, about a half length back, would be St Joseph's College. And then further back to the Scots College, the King's School, St Ignatius College, and Newington and Sydney High. But into this third quarter mile now, and the breeze getting stronger. This northeasterly breeze is really strengthening, and it's Sydney Grammar School and Shaw locked together. Sydney Grammar School in lane 6 and Shaw in lane 8. Moving along very nicely. It's Sydney Grammar School leading, a very neat crew here. It's the lightest crew in the race, and they're no doubt finding these conditions difficult. As we come towards the halfway mark of the third quarter, though, we have St Joseph's College in 3 that are moving along very, very nicely, and they're going to be a real threat to both Sydney Grammar School and Shaw. And St Joseph's College in the 3 is a crew that averages 78, the Cerise Blue crew averaging 78 kilograms, and they are going to move, they're moving very well. They've got a lot of power and strength in the boat, and these conditions they're really enjoying. As we come up towards the quarter mile mark to go, it's the St Joseph's College crew and Grammar very much together now. Perhaps St Joseph's College just getting their bow maybe just in front of Sydney Grammar School, and then back in third place we would have Shaw. And then the King's School, the Scots College, St Ignatius, Newington and High School. Right up now towards the quarter mile mark to go, and St Joseph's College in lane 3. The Cerise Blue are making a very strong move. Now the St Joseph's supporters said they had a top crew here, and it's really showing out. It's 78 kilograms, and St Joseph's doing very well. The challenge is coming at them though from the crew in the King's School, which is in lane 5, and also from Sydney Grammar School in lane 6, and then further across to Shaw.
Yes, what a great challenge coming from St Joseph's, but Shaw, I think, far too strong. Their blade work is good. They've now increased their rating as they see a challenge coming, and for the final stages, we cross to our Shaw commentator.
And looking now from the western bank, we see that Shaw, who are not in the picture, here they are right on the left-hand side in the white singlets, right over on this side, and that's Shaw, who may be in front now. Right across to St Joseph's on the far side in station 2, and between them are King's in 4 and Sydney Grammar in 6. But it's Shaw across the river to Sydney Grammar, the black singlets, then King's beside them, and right across, just out of picture, are St Joseph's College. 4 crews in the race here. It may be Shaw just in front, St Joseph's will be running second, then King's, Grammar, Scots, St Ignatius, Newington and Sydney High. 100 metres to go. It's a very good race, this one, with 4 crews battling it out, and it's not much between all 4. There wouldn't be a length of the boat between the whole 4 of them. And here they come with about a dozen strokes to go. It's Shaw on this side, further across to St Joseph's, who are tiring. Grammar coming through fast in the middle, and St Joseph's, will let early, may finish 4th here. But it's going to be Shaw on this side. Shaw, Grammar, King, St Joseph's, and it's Shaw first of all. Shaw's won the race. Second place into Grammar, I'd say. Third, King's. Fourth, St Joseph's. Fifth will be Scots. Then St Ignatius, Newington, and a long way back to Sydney High School.
Yes, Shaw School, they came through very well over the last 500 metres. St Joseph's have led early, but Shaw's margin at the finish, 3/4 of a length to the crew from Grammar, with a further half a length back to St Joseph's, and then 1/4 of a length to the rest of the field. But a fine effort there by Shaw School. That gives them the first 2 events on this afternoon's programme.
Well, there, I thought, just correct that, John, didn't King's come in 3rd place there?
Sorry, that's right. King's were half a length behind Grammar in 3rd and St Joseph's 4th.
That's right. So the unofficial result then, pending the official result of this race, is first Shaw, second Grammar, and third King's. So Shaw, in fact, from two different stations, lane 1 in the first race, lane 8 in the second, have won the first 2 fours, which indicates conditions on the river are pretty even right across.
That's right, Norman, and it had always been said that lane 8 was a disadvantage, but after the floods last year, we've found that a lot of the weed on lane 8 now has been cleared from the river, and there's no unequal lanes at all.
Well, let's make mention here that we're starting these races dead on time. The next race is due to start at 20 minutes past 2, and we'd like to cross, if we could, from studio at 19 past, because we missed the first 1.5 minutes of that last race. Pending the official results, we'll go back to the studio. First Shaw, second Grammar and third Kings. The time there, 5:59.7, was 4.5 seconds slower than the first race, half length by half length. Just started in the second fours. Here's Doug Donahue and Laurie Septo.
Well, with the start in the second fours, in lane 1 we have St Ignatius College, in lane 2 St Joseph's College, in lane 3 Scots, in lane 4 the early leader Sydney Grammar, in lane 5 Newington College, in lane 6 Sydney High School, in lane 7 Shaw, and in lane 8 is the King's School.
And again we see Shaw and Grammar. Shaw in station number 7 on the western side, and from our catamaran we see that they have moved away very strongly. We've mentioned throughout the 2 earlier events the depth which Shaw School have in their shed, and again we see good clean blade work, good body swing, good control and good run as they forge ahead at this point in the event. An excellent effort, a great start from the Shaw School 4.
Well, certainly a very bright start, and as we come to the 3/4 mile mark, you'll see the marker there as we go past. It's the Shaw and Grammar crews together, and then just in behind them in third place is Sydney High School. Then with them is King's School and St Ignatius College, then Newington College and the Scots College. But what a wonderful picture we see looking across the river here from our catamaran as we come into the second 1/4 mile mark, and the Shaw crew have moved out now to a good length advantage, it would be, over Sydney Grammar School. This very good Shaw crew, nice blade work. They're really moving well in this breeze, this head breeze down the course.
35 strokes to the minute I had them at in the last section of that event, and they're certainly capitalising. They're laying back into the stiffening nor'easterly, as Doug told you, and in fact this is giving them that opportunity to move away. They're a heavy crew, and they're well together, well controlled, and at 35 strokes and sitting, as Doug said, some 1.5 lengths at least in the lead of the other crews, it's a very, very comfortable position for them.
It's a very fine cruise, Shaw. You'll see in the picture there, they're very neat blade work. And just coming up into the picture is the King's School. The King's School in lane 8, another fine crew. It's average of 70 kilograms, this crew. Not moving as nicely in lane 8 there as the Shaw crew. But if we can move perhaps a little across river, we'll see the crew that is the possible challenge to Shaw, Grammar. There's Grammar in your picture, the Grammar School crew there, swinging along very, very nicely, and they look to be the possible threat at the moment to Shaw. It's Sydney Grammar School in lane 4, but in your picture at the moment we have the leader Shaw, and just in behind them is the King's School. Past the half-mile mark now, we have the Shaw crew leading from Sydney Grammar School, then coming the King's School, and then a Sydney High School crew that's moving along very, very nicely in lane 6. Then comes Newington College, St Joseph's College, the Scots College, and of course this is for the Alan Callaway Trophy, the former Australian coach Alan Callaway, who passed last year, and this is the first time this race is being rowed, the second fours for the Alan Callaway Trophy.
And the marked superiority of that Shaw School fours is indicated by the fact that they've dropped a point. They're down to about 34, and with the weight they have and the application of the blade to the water, you can see they're locking the blades in, and really it's a comfortable paddle for them at this point. Not paddle, but a comfortable row for them as they move further ahead, because they just have so much class in this particular field for the second fours.
Well, this crew is stroked by Dan McCullum, the Shaw 4, and coached by former Olympian John Clark, and it would be very fitting indeed to see this crew coached by John Clark win, because John himself was coached by Alan Callaway in international rowing. But coming up now towards the 1/4 mile mark, it's the Shaw crew going further and further into the lead. They're out now to a good 2.5 lengths margin, it would be, over the King's School, who would now be in second place. And then in third place we have Sydney Grammar School. A little further back then to St Joseph's College and Sydney High School together, then Newington College, the Scots College and St Ignatius College. But past the quarter mile mark, it's this outstanding crew from Shaw that's moving further and further into the lead, and now with some just into that stage, Shaw clearly in the lead. They're going to have a very big win. It's across to our Shaw commentator, Norman May.
And looking across from the western bank, we see that Shaw, the white singlets, well in front here. This is the best performance we've seen today. They're about 2 or 3 lengths over the remainder, possibly led by Kings, and further across to Grammar, Newington, Sydney High, Scots, St Joseph's and St Ignatius. With just over 200 metres to go, it's Shaw well in front. Now look at that magnificent shot looking across from the catamaran. But there's Shaw, the leading crew. They have about 200 metres to go now, and their lead would probably be 3 lengths over Kings. Further back then to a line of crews right across the field. We have High, Newington, Grammar, Scots, St Joseph's and St Ignatius, and a very, very close race for third, and there it is. That's a magnificent view looking across from the catamaran as they come up with about 200 metres to go. But Shaw, now with 100 metres to go, are well in front. Possibly it's St Joseph's over in lane 2, over on this side to Kings in lane 8, but it's Shaw in station 7 who are coming through to win the 3rd straight race for this school. The 4th fours, the 3rd fours, and now the 2nd fours, and they're a mile in front. A couple of strokes to go. Their lead is 4 or 5 lengths as they come up now. Any second the gun, and it's Shaw to win the race again. Shaw first, and there it is. Shaw first, a good race for second now. It'll be Kings coming through on this side. Kings further across to St Joseph's. It'll be Kings second. Kings will be second. Over across then to St Joseph's in 3rd place. Newington will come through to finish in 4th place. It's Newington 4th, then Grammar, Scots, Sydney High and St Ignatius.
The margin, Shaw School there, have been 4 lengths ahead of Kings at the finish. They've certainly lifted their rating over the last 400 metres. They'd come through the course at a steady 34, but the finish well up around 36, 37, and as Doug Donoghue commented, most fitting that crew, coached by John Clark, who was the emergency in Alan Callaway's 8 in Mexico and who stroked Alan Callaway's Australian 8 in Munich, should win that, the first Alan Callaway trophy for the 2nd fours race.
And there is the unofficial result. First Shaw, 2nd Kings and 3rd St Joseph's. Absolutely no doubt about the finishing order. At 5:54.5, the official margin was given at 2.5 lengths, which would be very, very conservative. It looked to be at least 4 lengths, no, length and a half between second and...
I should say here, in lane 1 is Shaw, and the crews are just backing down.
Shaw, again favourite in this particular event, again a very good crew, and I think they'll row an excellent race.
In lane 2 is Newington.
Newington College in this particular event, first fours, has not perhaps shown the form throughout the lead-up regattas, but should perform well.
And lane 3, St Joseph's College, the cerise and blue.
St Joseph's, this is a crew that has impressed around the scene, and I believe they certainly will be up with the leaders.
Lane 4 is St Ignatius. You'll see the royal blue colours of St Ignatius.
St Ignatius in an excellent position there, sitting quietly in the centre of the course, virtually in station number 4, and they too have shown good form at various regattas, including their own 3 weeks ago.
Lane 5 is High, the chocolate and blue.
Sydney High School, this crew I believe has an excellent chance. They're big lads, as mentioned earlier in the program. High School have some big lads in the shed this year, and they, whilst not considered favourites, ought to perform very well, and particularly in the early stages of the event.
Lane 6, the Scots College, the gold crew.
Scots, coached by Ron Ficara from Des Moines, sitting quietly there, and they haven't shown a great deal of form throughout the season.
Lane 7 is the King's School, the light blue with the white facings.
And I think, Doug, King's School is one of the heaviest crews in the event, and they're a crew that I haven't seen a great deal of, but I'm sure that they'll row very creditably.
And in lane 8, Sydney Grammar School, the black and gold.
And Sydney Grammar are the lightest crew in the event, and they have a certain brightness about them in their work that may carry them well down the river to victory.
Well, we're very, very close to a start now in the Uralla Cup, the first fours race. Last year, this race was won by the Scots College. At the Riverview Regatta, Grammar won the event. This light crew across in lane 8. We can probably hear in the background the starter Ozzie Rosevere's instructions. It's his 32nd year of starting the head of the river, and the instructions being given now to the King's School crew as the line is very good across the river. The gun goes to start the first fours race for the Uralla Cup. And in looking across the river in lane 1 on the Penrith side, we have Shaw. In lane 2, Newington. In lane 3, St Joseph's College. In lane 4, St Ignatius College. In lane 5, Sydney High School. In lane 6, the Scots College. In lane 7, the King's School. And in lane 8, Sydney Grammar School. And a good start it has been too, with the two brightest crews to move off that line being Shaw in lane 1 on the Penrith side, and then on the Emu Plains side, the Sydney Grammar School crew.
Somewhat prophetically there, Doug, that Sydney Grammar 4 did get away very well indeed. They had a very bright start. They latched on very quickly to the first 3 to 4 strokes, got the boat running, and they have moved out to a reasonable lead. As I mentioned, they are a very bright crew. They are light as well, but I hope the nor'easter doesn't worry them too much, but they certainly were well away in the first 20 or 30 strokes.
Well, there is Hector Hill, the stroke, in the Grammar boat there. It's coached by Murray Clark, and they've moved, as Laurie said, very brightly indeed. But as we look across the river, in lane 1 we see Shaw. The Shaw crew, the second lightest crew in the race. As we come past the 3/4 mile mark, it would be Shaw just in advance of Grammar, and the Shaw crew looking very comfortable indeed.
Yes, Shaw at about 35 strokes to the minute on that far side in station number 1, are settling down into a good racing rhythm, again employing the same technique and the style that we've seen in the crews which have been successful earlier in this particular regatta, but again a strong crew, and I think they're rowing a lot of controlled stuff there at the moment, right over in station number 1 on the eastern side.
Well, coming to the picture now, we have the King's School crew. They're in lane 7, and alongside them is the Scots College, and further across we see High and St Ignatius. Now the King's School crew average 70 kilograms, and they're moving along nicely too. They're in touch with the lead, but as the race continues on, it's the Shaw crew that are consolidating their lead from Sydney Grammar School, just coming into the picture, and then back from them we have the Scots College. You'll see the Gold of Scots, and back from them to the King's School.
Happily, in this particular event, the first 4, the crews are a little closer together, even though the 2 leaders are flanking the field. And as Doug mentioned, Scots and Kings were having pretty good rows in respectively stations 6 and 7. Kings, a fairly heavy crew, and they're stroking quite well, but they're starting to trail out, and it's the brightness of the crew in station number 6, that is Scots. Having a look at the way their boat is running, their blade work and bows, they're starting to inch up on the other 2 crews.
Well, as we go past the half-mile mark, it looks to be that Shaw are well ahead, but they're not really. It's the angle we are on. And as we move a little further up, you'll see that Sydney Grammar in lane 8, just in the picture there, are starting to challenge Shaw at the moment. The Sydney Grammar School crew now would be within a half to 3/4 of a length of Shaw, although Shaw are still rowing within themselves. And also moving up in the right of the picture, you'll see the Gold of Scots. Now, this Scots crew are a very good crew. It's the heaviest crew in the race, the Scots crew, averaging 76 kilograms. And Tom Lord is doing a nice job in the stroke seat there of that Scots College crew.
Yes, Scots, I got about 34 strokes to the minute, and their attack of the water, the blades are perhaps skying a little bit before they come down to lock into the water, and that may be a slight disadvantage in this nor'easterly, but they're sticking to their task, and slowly but surely they're picking up the Grammar 4, rating, as I said, Scots rating, as I said, something like 34 strokes to the minute.
As we get down towards the 1/4 mile mark now, it's Shaw leading from Sydney Grammar School, then comes the Scots College, St Ignatius College, Newington, Kings, Sydney High School and St Joseph's College. But coming up towards the 1/4 mile mark, this crew in lane 1, Shaw, look as though it's going to be almost 4 for Shaw, because they've got it now, a good clear length and a 1/4 lead it is, from Sydney Grammar School, and they're being challenged now by the Scots College, who are coming along very strongly.
As you mentioned, Shaw were looking good, strong, and they started to sprint and they started to move away. I got them as they increased their rating to something like 35 or 36. They'd been rowing good, long stuff. As you can see, blades locked in the water, good body swing. They'd been doing that for most of the race. Then they just popped up the rating as well they had to, with some challenges coming from both Grammar and from Scots.
Well, with Shaw leading, but the challenge coming from Scots and Grammar, will cross to Norman May at the finish.
And looking across from the finishing point with about 300 metres to go, the 3 crews running first, second and third are Shaw on the far side in station 1, then right over on this side the black singlets of Sydney Grammar, and right beside them the gold singlets of Scots. Further back then to St Ignatius, Newington, St Joseph's, Sydney High and Kings, but with 200 metres to go, it's Shaw on one side of the river and Grammar on the other, the Scots making a very determined finish in Station 6. It's Shaw, Grammar, Scots, then back to St Ignatius, Newington, over this side to Sydney High, then Kings and St Joseph's, and with about 150 metres to go, it's Shaw and Grammar and Scots fighting out second place, but I'd say Shaw are pulling away on the closing stage of this race, and it's going to be 4 in a row to Shaw, and this is a very good effort indeed. They may be getting a little bit tired, but they're well in front. This is very good race for second behind them between Grammar and Scots, but it's Shaw taking all the attention here as they come up now with about half a dozen strokes to go. There's the finish line. Only a few strokes left. It's Shaw well in front, and Shaw will win the race by about a length and a half. There's Grammar coming into second place. Shaw tiring very much on the line, but Shaw first, then Grammar and Scots will sure look like they're going to win by a length and a half. They ultimately won by half a length.
Half a length, no more than a half a length at the finish. That light Grammar crew certainly came home well in the last 200 metres, with Scots in third position, St Ignatius fourth, then Kings crossing for fifth. Then very little between Sydney High School, and Sydney High School have been cut off there, you'll see, by the crew from Kings. Sydney High cut off, and their coxswain standing up on the bow seat now, gesticulating at the crew from Kings. Most upset, the young coxswain from Sydney High, but no bearing on the result. A fine win by Shaw School, and that's 4 straight for Shaw this afternoon.
Well, in that race, the Shaw crew just fell in. They went very slowly indeed over the last 40 or 50 metres, but Shaw have won all of the 4 races. A very good performance by them. Of course, the 8s of the next races on the program. There is the unofficial result. We'll confirm the official result when we come back to the next race, which is the second 8s over 2,400 metres, and that's time to start at 3:05. Scots, Kings, St Ignatius, Newington, St Joseph's, High and Grammar. And we'll go down now to the ABC Catamaran, to our commentators Doug Donoghue and Laurie Steptoe.
Well, here we are at the start, the GPS mile start, and we're not very far off either. In lane 1 we have Shaw, in lane 2 Scots College, in lane 3 the King's School, in lane 4 St Ignatius.
Yes, those crews, in lane 1, of course, Shaw, a favoured crew, a very strong 4, a lot of good competition behind it. As Doug said, in lane 2, Scots College, they've been rowing quite well within themselves. In lane 3, the King's School. Kings finished 4th at the Gold Cup Regatta in the 4th fours and must also be considered a chance in this event.
Lane 4 is St Ignatius.
St Ignatius, as the crews from this college have rowed very stirringly indeed throughout the season, and they must be considered a real threat in this event.
Lane 5 is Newington.
Now, Newington College in the 4s have not performed all that well in the last 2 to 3 seasons, and it's rather hoped that this year they may improve on that position.
And then lane 6 is St Joseph's.
Now, St Joseph's is one of the heavy crews.
Well, we've now got the Sydney High School crew there in lane 7, and coming into the picture then is Sydney Grammar in lane 8. Well, the crews are going side on now. The Sydney High School crew in lane 7, the coxswain's hand is up, and the umpires have the red flags up, denoting that the race start is held.
Well, the 4th fours, it's over a distance of 1,600 metres. The line is reasonably good. In this particular event, as I mentioned, Shaw, St Joseph's and Kings must be considered to be the favourite crews, and the conditions, as we have mentioned, light nor'easterly, really quite pleasant for rowing. The crews just being held on the line by this nor'easter, which is coming down the river onto them, and in consequence it shouldn't be too long before the 4th fours are away.
Last year this particular event was won by Shaw from St Joseph's and Scots in the time of 5:25. I think we'll have a much slower time today, more likely to be in the late 5 minutes. It's very different conditions. Last year was a very strong running river. Today we have a fairly still river and that light breeze nor'easterly up the course.
I certainly agree with you, Doug.
There's a break there at the start.
Yes.
And it was the Shaw crew in lane 1 and Scots in lane 2 and Sydney Grammar School right across in lane 8 that moved off before the start. So there will be a slight delay here. Very rare. And we have in lane 1 Shaw, then in lane 2 is Scots, in lane 3 is the King's School, then in lane 4 coming towards the middle of the river, St Ignatius College, then in lane 5 Newington College, then in lane 6 further across St Joseph's College, then Sydney High School, and then Sydney Grammar School. Well, they've covered now just about 200 metres or so, and the early leader would be Shaw from St Ignatius College. A little further back from them comes St Joseph's College, the King's School, Sydney Grammar School, Newington College and Sydney High.
Well, our catamaran is coming down the western side, or the Emu Plain side of the course, and it's over on the far side in station number 1 that Shaw School, I observed, had an excellent start, and they capitalised on it in the first 20 strokes or so. But in the centre of the course, we do see in station number 4 a very good swing and bait control from the St Ignatius 4, which I mentioned was a favoured crew, and they're swinging very well into their work. They're covering their blades well, and they have good run between strokes, and they've moved up and they challenge Shaw for that early lead.
Well, as we come up to the 3/4 mile mark now, that's 3/4 of a mile to go. It's the Shaw crew who've now moved out to about a third of a length advantage, it would be. They're in lane 1. And then second from them would be St Ignatius College, and then back from them comes the King's School, St Joseph's College and Sydney Grammar, and then a little further back to Scots, Newington and Sydney High School.
Perhaps if we could concentrate on the crew in station number 8, the Sydney Grammar 4. They got away in the first start, the fourth start, and they settled into a good racing rhythm, but they're starting to rush their work just a little, and I think the effort they were making to move up on the other 2 crews that were leading is starting to fail, but they're still rowing quite well within themselves as we move down the course.
Well, over to lane 1, the leading crew at the moment, and that is the Shaw crew. This Shaw 4 averaged 64 kilograms. They're stroked by Andrew Wilson, and they're swinging along very, very nicely. Looking at Shaw, we see the very neat placement of the blade in the water, very nice body work, and very much together leg drive. And Shaw are consolidating their lead here. Shaw now holding perhaps a half a length, it would be, on the King's School in lane 3. King's moving along very well. This King's School crew averaging 69 kilograms, and then back in third place we have at this stage St Joseph's College. So as we come to the half-mile mark, it would be Shaw from the King's School, in third place St Joseph's College, then Sydney Grammar and Riverview, then further back to Scots, Newington and High, but back now to the leading crew, which would be Shaw.
I endorse your comments, Doug, about the leg drive. They exercised that quite well in that middle section of the race, and they've moved away very strongly indeed. The blade work is good, as you heard. They have excellent run between strokes, and with that added power and weight that they have, and good leg drive, controlled rowing, they're certainly moving even further away, and it doesn't appear at this stage that any crew really has a chance to row them down.
Well, we're into the third quarter mile now, and this is where you really have to move if you're going to try and catch the leader. And that's exactly what the King's School are doing. As we look at Shaw now, just behind Shaw, you'll see the sky blue singlets of the King's School, and they're the 2 crews at the moment that have singled themselves out. It's Shaw at this stage, moving very, very nicely. It's a good crew, Shaw, and they are leading now from the King's School. And then in third place, we have St Joseph's College in lane 6. And then right across on the Emu Plain side is the Sydney Grammar School crew in lane 8. A little further back then we have St Ignatius, Scots College, Newington College and Sydney High. But back to the leaders now, and coming up towards the quarter mile mark, it's the Shaw crew at the moment, holding just about a length and a quarter's margin now over the King's School. And Shaw are moving along very, very strongly. They're looking the winner, but it's this King's School crew now in lane 3. King's moving strongly, and they're starting to throw out a challenge. This King's School crew, that's stroked by Joe Sergi and coached by Ian Edwards, are moving very strongly, and they are now throwing out the challenge to Shaw. At the quarter mile mark, a quarter mile to go, it's Shaw leading from the King's School. In third place then we have St Joseph's College in lane 6. Then comes Sydney Grammar in lane 8, and then back a couple of lengths or so to St Ignatius College, the Scots College, Newington College and Sydney High School. But we're now well into that last quarter mile, and it's Shaw leading very, very nicely, but the challenge is coming on every stroke from the King's School. Shaw in front by about a half a length now, but Kings are coming at them on every stroke, and with just about 200 metres to go, we'll cross to Norman May at the finish.
And looking across from the western bank, we can see the two crews on the far side, the white singlets of Shaw, and just beside them, the light blue singlets of Kings. And these two crews have opened up a lead of about 2 or 3 lengths over St Joseph College, who are back in third place, and a long way back to the remaining crews led by Grammar, then Sydney High, Newington, St Ignatius and Scots. But the two crews in front, there's nothing much between them. And here they are, Shaw on the far side and Kings. And Kings making a very determined effort here. They're both very tired, about 50 or 60 metres ago, perhaps a little more than that. About a dozen or 15 more strokes. They're coming up towards the finish. Shaw about half a length in front. Kings coming up from the lead and probably less than that. And looking across the finishing line, there's nothing much in this at all. It's a very good race to open the program. It's Shaw just in front of Kings, curling. Kings throwing everything into it now. It's Shaw very tired. Kings are tired too. A couple more strokes. The gun's going to go off any second. It's Shaw, Kings, and Shaw has won the race. Shaw from Kings. Third placing, well back there, they're coming in now, Sydney Grammar School, St Joseph's College rather, St Joseph's College, and then coming through on this side, we'll see Sydney Grammar coming into 4th place, Sydney Grammar 4th, St Ignatius probably, or Scots will be in 5th place, it'll be Scots safe and St Ignatius, and then Newington and Sydney High, but those 4 crews coming across the line, almost in the exact straight line. So as we saw them, it was Shaw, followed by Kings and St Joseph's, the result of the 4th fours. Shaw first, St Joseph's second, and no, Shaw first rather, Kings second, and St Joseph's third. And the lanes there were lane number 1 for Shaw, lane number 3 for Kings, and lane number 6 for St Joseph's. Absolutely still condition on the river. I don't think there was any great advantage then to any crew on the race. But once again, the Shaw School have been so successful in recent years in the 4s. Have Penrith, the result of the first 4s was Shaw, Grammar, Scots as call time, 5:51.1. That margin was a quarter of a length in the end, and we weren't exaggerating when we said that Shaw was more than a length in front with 100 metres to go. Half a length between second and third. There's the official result down at the starting point of 2,400 metres. The first of the 2/8 races, the second 8s. Commentators on the catamaran, Doug Donahue, Laurie Steptoe.
Well, here at the 1.5 mile start, we have the crews just coming into line, and across in lane 1 we have St Ignatius College.
St Ignatius is a very, very powerful 8. They average about 78 kilograms, and they're looking very strong indeed and have performed very, very well indeed.
And in lane 2 is Shaw.
Shaw again a very strong 8, and if Shaw are going to scoop the pool, this is an event which probably will contribute, to say the least. Again, a very well groomed and polished and strong 8.
And can they make it 5 in a row today? In lane 3 is High.
Well, Sydney High School, again, I think this year at 76, averaging 76 kilograms, they're going to perform very, very well. I have an idea that this 8 is capable of doing an excellent job for their school.
In 4 is St Joseph's College.
Now, St Joseph's is a crew which has been a little inconsistent in its preparatory racing, but I think they've peaked well and, again, should perform excellently.
Then in 5 is Sydney Grammar School.
Well, we know what this Sydney Grammar 8 is capable of doing. In the lead-up events, they've shown a lot of good form, and we know there's a lot of knowledgeable coaching being applied to them, and I think they'll do an excellent job. Their effort, of course, last year in winning the Head of the River was magnificent.
And they're away, and in 6 it's the King's School. No, there's a start there. The umpire has held up the race. I think the gun did not fire, so the crews moved though on the words of the starter, so that means there will be a delay at the start of the second 8s. And Newington.
The Newington College 8 being coached by 2 international competitors, a coxswain and an oarsman, and the college believes that this 8, whilst not having shown a form in the earlier regattas, probably will do very, very well today. They're somewhat confident that the form today in the river is going to be better than most people expect.
And in lane 8 we have the gold of the Scots College.
Yes, well, Scots, again, there's 2 very experienced men coaching this Scots College 8, and I know they've done a lot of hard work. They've trained very hard, a lot of in-boat and out-boat training, and I think there's a chance that this 8 may well surprise.
Well, it shouldn't be very long before there is a start in the second 8s. It is a held start, So there's very little trouble. At the moment, there's just a light northeasterly breeze or so up the course. Absolutely perfect conditions, really. And the starter, Aussie Rosevear, now getting back into some sort of a reasonable line, just being touched up in the shore boat, looking across river, the coxswain's hand up in the St. Ignatius boat. The coxswain, you'll see there, holding on to a toggle, and there is this wire across the river. A light touch in the Grammar boat just to bring the boat into line. The Newington crew in lane 7 just touching the boat up, bringing it up just lightly. And the crew's sitting very patiently now for starter Aussie Rosevear.
Yes, I'm just going to observe. I'll keep my eye on Aussie Rosevear, but I was going to observe the great advantage of this held start, because we just had a full start and they've gone back quickly. They just have to back down and they're in the starter's hands again. And it looks to me that Newington is the only crew at the moment that needs some attention to their line. Mr. Rosevear just reaching for his gun.
Well, the line's a good one at the moment, and the gun goes to start the second eights. And coming across the river, we have on the Penrith side, St. Ignatius. There is a hand up. The Scots boat has stopped. As yet, the race has been stopped again, and the red flag is up. You'll see the umpire waving the red flag. Hold of the toggle once more as we sit here at the 1.5 mile mark. The GPS start, a very famous 1.5 miles race. Certainly longer than the Olympic distance. The Olympic distance is 2,000 metres. This race, 1.5 miles, 2,400 metres. So it's a grueling race. The first half mile is very much a sprint. The second half mile gets into consolidation of positions, and you've really got to be moving in that second half mile, and certainly with the lead when you run into that third half mile and the final run to the finish. Again, a problem at the start, looking across, and a further delay as Scots, Shore and Sydney High School move away from the toggle. The boys are a little anxious at the moment, and that's, I guess, understandable. They've put months and months of training into this event, and this is the one that people do remember.
Yes, I think that's so true. On that occasion, there was absolutely no necessity for the two crews, Scots and Newington, to move, but they were so edgy, and they thought a start was imminent, and I don't really believe that Mr. Rosevear had given his final instructions, but of course they went, not at great pace, because there was certain uncertainty about them as far as they were concerned, and they just went off, and two crews on the far side also went off at the same time. But back they come now to into the starter's hands.
Well, all crews now back into line, and looking at the starter, Aussie Rosevear here. He's in the picture there, Aussie Rosevear, starting his 32nd head of the river. A very patient starter, very, very good with schoolboys. But I guess he's probably getting a little concerned now. He raises the gun and fires the gun to start the second eights. And a good start it was too this time, with in lane 1, St. Ignatius, and coming across the river from the Penrith side, we then see in lane 2, Shore, and then in lane 3, Sydney High, in lane 4, St. Joseph's College, in lane 5, Sydney Grammar School, in lane 6, the King's School, in lane 7, Newington College, and in lane 8, the Scots College. And what a wonderful picture that is, with the 8 crews across the river in that very, very bright and fast start.
Indeed, it was on that far side in stations numbers 1 and 2 that St. Ignatius and Shore got away very quickly indeed. They seem to settle into a racing rhythm much quicker, and whilst as you view, you can see that there's a line across the river. It's a little difficult for us. We're on the western side to pick up the crews on the far side now, but an excellent race developing, and there's not a great deal between all of these crews. The two brightest away, however, were Shore and St. Ignatius.
Well, what a superb picture it is to have the 7 crews in the line across. Unfortunately, Sydney High have slipped back very, very quickly. They're already some 3 or 4 lengths further back from the other 7 crews. We've now covered a quarter of a mile, and we have the crew from Grammar at the moment, Grammar and Shore together leading, as we pass the first quarter mile mark. From the King's School, St. Joseph's College, Riverview, Newington right up with it, and the Scots College. The crew nearest to us at the moment is the Scots College, and they're moving along very, very nicely. This crew that's stroked by Tim McMullen, very, very bright in this lane 8 position. We're now seeing the Scots College, but further across in lane 7 as we move, we see the Newington crew.
Yes, Newington, they're starting to forge ahead. I got them rating at about 37 strokes, and they've taken a lead. Their work perhaps is getting into a more firmer pattern. They were perhaps a little scratchy earlier, but they've really lengthened out now, and they're starting to take full advantage of a longer stroke as they head down into this not so fresh, but nevertheless appreciable northeasterly.
But perhaps if we moved across the river and looked at lane 2, we'll see Shaw. Shaw at the moment are this powerful crew, averaging 76 kilograms, and they're moving very strongly. They are the leader as we come up to the end of the first half mile. So looking at this Shaw crew in the top of the picture, we see them at the moment just leading from Sydney Grammar School, and then we see the bow and 2 men in the bottom of the picture from the King's School. And as we pass the first half mile mark, it's Shaw and leading perhaps by about a canvas it would be or a quarter of a length it would be to Sydney Grammar School. With them is Newington College, then the Scots College, the King's School, Riverview and St Joseph's College, and a long way back to Sydney High School.
It's noticeable that the 2 crews that I mentioned that were rowing the length are the 2 that are showing out. Shaw School on the far side, perhaps a point lower than Newington, and I had them at about 34, and they have tremendous length and good leg drive. We've mentioned that earlier in the afternoon about their application of their legs, and their boat is running very, very well indeed. And at about 34, 35 strokes to the minute, they're having a comfortable row on the far side, setting their own pattern and using the weight to great advantage.
But as we come across the river, you'll see further across in lane 5, the Sydney Grammar School crew moving along very nicely too. Stroked by Michael Vass. Grammar are within range here at the moment. And then further in lane 6, we see the King's School. The King's School moving along very strongly. And then across to lane 7, we have Newington College well within range here of Shaw. And alongside them in lane 8, we have the Scots College. Now we come to the 3/4 mile mark. We're halfway in this 1.5 miles, second eighths for the LC Watson Trophy. And at that point, it's the Shaw crew in lane 2 who would be leading now by about a half a length it would be to Newington College, swinging along very nicely indeed. And then only about a quarter of a length back from them is the Scots College. Then comes the King's School, Sydney Grammar, Riverview College, St Joseph's College and Sydney High School.
Before the start of the event, I mentioned Scots College, their fitness. I said they've done a lot of work, and it's starting to show now as they're putting pressure, and have been in this station number 8 on the western side of the course. They've been putting pressure on Newington alongside of them. Those 2 are having a great boat race, stroke for stroke all but, whilst Shaw on the far side had set the pattern. These 2 8s, that's namely Scots in 8 and Newington in 7, are having a great row there together, pacing each other, and blade work and control in both boats is excellent.
Well, it's a great race. We've got the Shaw crew now in lane 2. Across in lane 2, as we get a wider picture here, we'll move across to see Shaw. And there's the Shaw crew coming into the picture. They're the leader now as we get to the end of the first mile. They're leading by about a half a length it would be to Newington College and the Scots College. A great picture as we get to the half mile mark. Shaw in the top of the picture, then Newington in the centre and Scots College just with them. All 3 crews right within range of a win. And this is where you've really got to start to go. Shaw have got the lead, but they're going to be attacked now, if that is possible, by Newington and Scots.
I'm most impressed with the work in all those 3 boats that Doug has mentioned, but looking at the leader on the far side in station number 1, Shaw have wonderful boat control, and I like their work as they come down the slide. It's unhurried, but their attack of the water as the blade goes in at the catch is really very, very strong, and they're starting to lock the blades in and perhaps increase the rating. I got them at about 36, and they're starting to move slowly ahead of the other 2 crews that had figured so much in this race as we came down over this part of the course.
Well, there we have Shaw doing very well indeed. A credit to their coach, Jeremy Dale, as they move along most convincingly and strongly. Shaw now out to a good length margin it would be over the Scots College, who've now moved clearly into second place. Then in third place we have Newington College, then back about a length to the King's School, to Sydney Grammar, then comes Riverview, St Joseph's College and Sydney High School. Just over a quarter of a mile to go now. and it's still Shaw by about a length.
I just make the comment that Scots have made a real effort. They've increased the rating. They're probably up to about 37 or 38. They're starting to drive it home. They're in station number 8, and they're really starting to put pressure on the Shaw School 8. I just wonder, however, whether Scots haven't taken perhaps a little out of themselves as they made that effort, but they're certainly within striking distance, and they're rowing very, very well indeed in these closing stages.
Well, there's a quarter mile to go in the second 8s, and the Shaw crew now leading by a good length at the quarter it would be from the Scots College and Newington College, and with Shaw looking to be the winner of this stage, but the challenge coming from Scots will cross to Norman May at the finish.
And now from the western bank with about 300 metres to go, it's Shaw over in station 2, and their lead is about a length over Scots over on this side, who are in station 8, beside them Newington, who are dropping back in 7, and coming through what in station 6 at Kings, and we see the black singlets, you'll see them coming to the picture in a moment of Grammar, and right across to St Ignatius. But there's the margin for Shaw, and right over on this side is Scots. That difference will be about a length, a full length of the boat. And in the race for third, we have 3 crews, Newington, Kings, and St Ignatius right over on the far side. The other 3 crews racing out for third place, but Shaw, who are trying to make it 5 in a row, have about 100 metres to go. It's Shaw in front from Scots, and Shaw in no danger at all here. It's Shaw in front from Scots. A very good race for third between Newington, Kings, and possibly St Ignatius, who will make third place. But it's Shaw all the way, about 4 or 5 strokes to go. There's the finishing line. It's Shaw coming in now to win their 5th straight race today. It will be the Shaw first, and Shaw will get the gun any second now. There is the gun. It's Shaw first. Scots will be second, and right over on the far side, St Ignatius finishing very fast. May get third place just ahead of Newington. This is going to be close, but I'd say possibly who? Newington on this side. Newington, St Ignatius, then Kings, Grammar, St Joseph's, and way back, a long way down the river to Sydney High.
A great effort there by Shaw. They did it on their own in station 2. Scots on station 8 had Newington pushing them along for most of the way until Newington faded over the last few hundred metres. Shaw, on the other hand, had to do it on their own, but fine effort by the stroke there. He went through, rating a consistent 34 all the way, and then they just squeezed that margin out at the finish, and at the finish, 2 lengths was the margin of their win over Scots. Newington a further length and a half behind in third position, just beating St Ignatius by a canvas, and they're in fourth.
Well, comments there by John Coates, and the unofficial result we've given you. Shaw first, Scott second, and Newington third. And now our catamaran is just turning around in front of us to go right back to the starting point. 2,400 metres downriver for the start of the Schools Championship 8s, the main event on the programme. And I'm delighted to welcome now Kevin Webb, who's normally a radio commentator of the ABC. With no direct radio coverage today, we're going to hear from Kevin of his thoughts on the 8th, because, Kevin, you beat Aussie Rosevear by 1, don't you? This is 33 years you've done this?
That's right, Norman. This is my 33rd year. It all started way back in 1946 when I was rowing 6 in the New South Wales King's Cup crew, and Brian McLennan, who later went to TUE as his general manager, was broadcasting for the ABC. He and I had been in the same squadron during the war, and he asked me to become his expert witness at the assisting him in the 1946 Head of the River, and I've broadcast ever since that date.
So, Kevin, Aussie Rosevear started a year later than you, did he?
He did in 1947, Norm.
Kev, has any... and a length and a half between second and third. Now, in the Schools Championship 8s, the event to follow, it's interesting here that the featured crews, or a majority of them, have drawn together. Across the draw we have Kings, St Ignatius High in 1, 2, 3, and then the main rivals, I should think, in Shaw, Newington, Grammar and Scots, drawn right beside themselves in 4, 5, 6 and 7 with St Joseph's in lane 8. Can you say it any other way, Kevin, or is that...
Well, no, one of the things that I think about this year's Head of the River, normally we find it very hard to pick between 1 or 2 crews. There's usually a couple of outstanding crews, and we always say that, well, it's going to be hard to choose, but certainly those 4 crews you mentioned, Norman, are outstanding. We've got Shaw in 4, Newington in 5, Grammar in 6 and Scots in 7. St Joseph's College has been doing very well too. I believe Sydney High School are the best 8 they've had for a number of years. They've been coached this year by a former Commonwealth Games coach, Dr. Eric Longley, and he's brought that crew along well. St Ignatius under Father Ramsey is also right in there. and King's School. So all 8 crews are certainly in there with a magnificent chance. But the top 4 crews, as we see them, have been outstanding during the club season, and they're certainly going to be very difficult to beat in this head of the river.
Well, last year Grammar ended the longest sequence of any crew, ended a drought of, 22 odd years to win the 8s. Can they do it again? I believe Grammar has a new boat, Kevin.
Grammar have got a very light boat, and they've been... Don Craig has been assisted in the coaching by Rusty Robinson, the New Zealand coach who came to Australia, and of course he coached New Zealand to a gold medal at the Olympic Games, and they've been rowing with Drummoyne, most of the Grammar boys, and got a lot of experience, and they're going to be very hard to beat.
Well, according to our watch, it's right on starting time at the present time. 3 is a scheduled start. There was a delay in the last race with a couple of full starts there. That may slow things down a little bit because they start right down at that point. It's odd here today that the races are listed in the program in metric distances at 2,400 metres, yet all the markers, Kevin, are back in half miles, quarter miles.
Yes, well, I don't think the organisers have caught up with their own program. But one point I would say, looking at that crowd there, Norman, is that for a sport that gained very little publicity during the week other than from the ABC, what a magnificent crowd. I'd put it at somewhere around about 20,000 people. It's the biggest I've seen for 10 years, and it's magnificently enthusiastic, and they're going to really come to life in this head of the river race.
Well, I'm talking about enthusiastic and big crowd. It was certainly the biggest traffic jam we've had for years getting here, because behind there is the new road bridge, which opened up the avenue to the mountains, and that's a kind of beautiful view from there, looking down on the starting point. So very soon now we'll be crossing down to our 2 commentators, Doug Donahue and Laurie Steptoe at the start. The weather at the moment is overcast. There may be just a suggestion of rain about, but I shouldn't think it would affect the race. It's going to be very light if it does come down. Water conditions are very good, and down at the starting point, our 2 commentators, Doug Donahue and Laurie Steptoe.
Yes, Brian? We now have the start of the 1.5, and at the start here for the Major Rini Trophy, the Heather River, we have in lane 1 the King's School.
We haven't seen a great deal of Kings in the preparatory regattas, but they have 2 from last year's 8, the Coxon and Stroke there, and they will be right in the race.
And then in lane 2, St Ignatius.
St Ignatius College 8, coached by Father John Ramsey, very confident. They've rowed very well, strong crew, fit, and 2 from last year back in that boat.
In lane 3, Sydney High.
Sydney High School, coached by Dr. Eric Longley. Again, a confidence coming from that shed, and they have, I think it's 5 from last year's 8 in the boat again this year.
In lane 4 is Shore.
Coached by Bob Sherlaw, a former international and Olympic oarsman, and the gun has gone over to Doug Donahue.
In lane 5, looking across the river, we have Newington. In lane 6, Grammar. In lane 7, the Scots College, and in lane 8, St Joseph's College. So there we see the very, very fast start for the head of the river, and the crews moving out very, very promptly. Sydney High School starting very, very fast there. And looking across from the Penrith side, we have in 1 the King's School, then in 2 St Ignatius, in lane 3 Sydney High School, in lane 4 Shore, in lane 5 Newington College, in lane 6 Sydney Grammar School, in lane 7 the Scots College, and in lane 8 St Joseph's College.
The umpires are having just a little difficulty in the centre of the course. The crews are quite close together, the crews in stations number 4 and 5, namely Shore and Newington. I've been concentrating on that, but I did get, in fact, a rating on Grammar. They're away at about, settled down to about 37 strokes to the minute, and Newington was at 36.
There is a quarter mile just gone now, and at this stage we have a great tussle for the lead between Sydney High School and then Sydney Grammar. Right up there is the King's School, and Shore moving along very nicely. Also moving well there is Newington College, and this is really developing at this early stage into a super race. Into that second quarter mile mark now, and Sydney Grammar School looking very, very neat. They're the crew in the black singlets and the white boat. Sydney Grammar School in lane 6, moving very nicely indeed. They are leading now just by about a quarter of a length it would be from Newington College, and running right with them there also would be the Scots College.
Looking at Grammar and Newington, Grammar at about 37 strokes, Newington 35-36. The race developing in that particular quarter, although in station number 7 we have Scots College turning in a great performance as they settle into an excellent racing rhythm, slightly different style, not quite so long in the water, but they're going very, very well in station number 7.
Well, we're coming to the end of the first half mile, and the crew that's really moving along very, very fast and making what you might call a run for it early is the Scots College. The Scots College in lane 7 are leading at this stage from Sydney Grammar School. Then just in behind them comes Newington College. A little further back then to Riverview, also Shaw and Sydney High School, and St Joseph's College and the King's School.
What's impressing me about Scots is the way they are attacking the water. Their blade work isn't perhaps quite as clean as some of the other crews, namely Grammar and Newington, but they are really savagely into the water, locking the blade in, and they have excellent leg drive, and they are certainly capitalising on their efforts in that first or second quarter of a mile.
Well, we're into this middle half mile. This is where you need to be running with the field to have a real chance. You need to consolidate your margin, and this is exactly what Scots are doing. Scots now leading by about 3/4 of a length, it would be, to Sydney Grammar School, moving along very, very nicely. Then in third place we have a half a length back the Newington crew, then back 3/4 of a length to Shaw, to Riverview, to St Joseph's College, King's School, Sydney High School.
Scots at 35 now. They've dropped down a point, and again, if concentrating on them, we can see that they've got excellent run between strokes. Just looking at the bow of their boat, it's being propelled at all times. The boat is running very well indeed, and as I see it, and as we see the race as it goes down, Scots have so much power, and they seem to have so much time as they lock the blades in the water, and quite frankly, it seems that with every stroke they move further ahead.
Well, at the halfway mark, 3/4 of a mile, it's the Scots College crew now leading by about a length and a half, it would be, over Newington College, who are about a canvas in advance of Sydney Grammar School. Then Shaw moving up at this stage. Behind Shaw comes the St Ignatius College. Then comes the King's School, St Joseph's College, and Sydney High School. But let's move back and have a look at the leader, because this Scots College crew are consolidating on every stroke. It's a powerful crew that averages 82.5 kilograms, or about 13 stone, and their coach, Fred Fullerton, has certainly done a marvellous job with this Scots College crew, because in this middle half mile they are consolidating their position, and they've gone out now to a good length and a half margin over Newington College. Then behind them comes Sydney Grammar, Shaw, Riverview, King's School, St Joseph's and Sydney High.
Obviously, while Scots have this very, very commanding lead, and it seems to be a lead which they're going to hang on to, Newington made an effort with half the race covered. Newington, the crew in white in station number 5, they move forward. Their effort is coming now, and they're inching past Grammar. Grammar seem to be tiring, but it's a race, I think, at the moment between Scots and Newington at 7 and 5, and Newington starting a real effort now, but one wonders whether they've just given a little too much away to the Scots College crew in station number 7.
Well, we're at the half-mile mark, a half a mile to go. Scots have got a good length or so over Newington. Then in third place is Sydney Grammar School. Then comes Shaw, Riverview improving their position. Then comes the King's School, then St Joseph's College and the Sydney High School. But as we now move into this last half mile, the question is now whether Newington can pull back Scots, because Scots have got that good lead. Newington are moving up to them though on every stroke. This is going to be a really superb race, because as we look now, it's the Scots College crew. Can they hold on? Because Newington are moving up to them on every stroke. We're now into the well into this last half mile, and Newington, as we watch them here, are moving further and further up onto Scots. And what a fine finish we're going to see. At this stage, it's Scots College leading from Newington. Then in third place we have Shaw, then Grammar, then Riverview, then the King's School, St Joseph's College and Sydney High School. But we're coming up now towards the quarter-mile mark. That's a quarter-mile to go in the head of the river, and Scots are being gathered in on every stroke by Newington. But Scots have still got the lead. The Scots crew now are looking a little tired, but they're holding on to that lead. The Newington crew starting to make their run. The Newington crew have been coached, I should say, by Michael Morgan, the Australian coach. And at this stage, it's the crew from Scots leading from Newington College. Then right across on the far side, we have the King's School improving their position with Riverview. Also Shaw, Sydney Grammar School, St Joseph's College and Sydney High School. But into that last quarter mile now, what a wonderful race we're going to see in these strengthening headwinds. It's Scots in front. The question is whether Newington can catch them. And with in third place Grammar, then Shaw, will cost him more than at the finish.
And there's tremendous enthusiasm here on the western bank into this last grueling stage of the race. It's Scots in front. They've been there most of the way. And for the first time today, we're seeing those goal signets in front. It's Scots first, followed by Newington in the black and white there further across. Grammar dropping back on the right-hand side. And even Shaw being challenged now by St Ignatius. And further across, just out of picture, are Kings in the race for third place. But into this headwind, it's Scots in front with about 150 metres to go. It's Scots, Newington, and across the river we have Grammar, Shaw, St Ignatius and Kings. But there's the race. It's Newington coming at Scots. Scots are in front. They'll lead about 3/4 of a length, back to full length of the boat. Newington coming at them now. I think the finishing line will be too close. It's going to be Scots, Newington, then either Grammar, Shaw, Kings or St Ignatius for third place. But Scots is going to be for 1979. About 3 or 4 strokes to go. You'll see the finish line now. It's Scots in front by a length. It's Scots 2 strokes to go. Here's the gun coming up. Scots first. Scots first, second placing to Newington. A tremendous race for third. You see 4 crews coming across the line now. It may be Grammar on this side. It looks like Grammar third. Fourth placing is going to be very close. It's going to be Grammar, Shaw, and a dead heat almost between St Ignatius and Kings, then St Joseph's, and finally Sydney High. So the sequence for Shaw School has been broken after 5 straight wins, and no doubt about the winner. And there they are, a very good crew indeed from the Scots College.
Well, Scots College, Norm, had a magnificent row. They're coached by Fred Fullerton, I'm delighted to say comes from my club at Haberfield, and he's really got that crew in magnificent condition. They rode away from the start around about 37. They maintained the lead, but they're under great pressure from Newington College in that final 500 metres. Newington were coming at them, but Scots had the look back on them. They came home fairly comfortably, really, by 1 length to take out the head of the river. Fred Fullerton coached Scots to win the first and second fours last year, so he must be a very delighted coach, and a tremendous performance by the Scots College in taking out the 79 head of the river.
So pending the official result, there it is, Scots, Newington and Grammar. And while we're waiting for the official margins and times, we'll just run through the results of earlier races today. The 4th fours went to Shaw from Kings and St Joseph's, a canvas by 3.5 lengths in 5:55.2. The 3rd fours to Shaw, Grammar and Kings, half length by half length, 5:59.7. The 2nd fours to Shaw, Kings and St Joseph's, 2.5 lengths by 1.5 lengths, 5:54.5. The 1st fours to Shaw, Grammar and Scots, a 1/4 length by half a length, 5:51.1. The 2nd 8s to Shaw, Scots and Newington, and the margins there were 1 1/4 lengths, 1.5, 8:4.9. 8:01.8 for the 8s. 8 minutes 01.8 is the official time for the Championship 8s.
Well, it's not a record, Norm.
So the official result now of the Schools Championship 8s for 1979, first Scots, second Newington and third Grammar, 1 length by a half length, the time 8:1.8, and as Kevin Webb says, not a record.
No, it's not a record, Norm, but it's a magnificent row because there is a headwind. The nor'easter, when it reaches Penrith, turns into a headwind on the river, and they certainly had to battle it all the way down that 1.5 mile course.
So with our final view here of the champion schools, Scots winning the 8s, a very good close-up of the winning crew as they come down before the crowd here, and they're going to get a tremendous welcome from all the Scots College schoolboys who are just away to our right, and our catamaran is right beside them there to give us the unparalleled views close up on the river, and that's exactly how close our catamaran can get. They've done a wonderful job out there today, and that's the crew on the catamaran, the cameraman and our commentators, Doug Donahue and Laurie Steptoe. So with this view of Scots, we'll say for the last time it'll be goodbye here from Penrith with Scots College, the Schools Championship 8s for 1979, and from the Nepean River in Penrith, this is ABC Sport.